Hi, welcome to Give Cheese a Chance, where we encourage you to make cheese at home. I'm Marianne. Most of the recipes we've done on this YouTube channel so far have been for people who are starting to make cheeses at home. So beginner recipes such as quick mozzarella, beginner's ricotta, mascarpone, a Nabulsi cheese, and even a boursin type of cheese that you could spread. So those cheeses are what we call fresh cheeses. They're meant to be eaten right away. Well, what about the other cheeses that we love so much? Camemberts, cheddars, blues, and other more sophisticated cheeses. Well, those cheeses require aging. They require maturation, either a few weeks, a few months, or even a few years. If you are going to learn how to make those cheeses, you have to understand the process called affinage. I just love to say that, affinage. Just think of it as if you're brushing your teeth. If you have poor dental hygiene, you're going to have problems with your teeth. It's the same for advanced cheeses. If you don't take care of your cheeses, you're going to get problems like bacterial contamination, fungal contamination, or even cracked rinds. So you might put your foot down and say, but I just don't want to take care of those cheeses after I make them, and that's totally okay. You have several options then. You can limit yourself to making fresh cheeses only. You can also make brined cheeses like feta, or this Nabulsi cheese where the salt concentration in the brine protects the surface of the cheese from any contamination. Or you can vacuum pack your cheese like this cheddar. Or you can also wax your cheese like this colby. The last option is to allow a cheese to develop a natural rind, and that's what requires some more knowledge. Cheese experts know the exact conditions to create the perfect cheese. They know the right amount of airflow, the right amount of humidity, and the exact temperature to get the best result. As home cheesemakers, it can be quite challenging for us to mimic those conditions, but we can do our very best by using what's called a ripening box. And I have two ripening boxes here. They're basically just big buckets with a lid that can be opened and closed. Also, inside the ripening box, you need some kind of tray to keep your cheese off of the bottom of the box. And on top of that, you need a bamboo sushi mat. Make sure you have a different ripening box for each cheese that you make to avoid cross-contamination. While each cheese needs some airflow around it, it's important that you control how much airflow is in the ripening box. So to increase the amount of airflow, prop open the lid of your ripening box and put something there to make sure that the lid stays ajar or askew, depending on what kind of box you have. So this will allow some air to go in and circulate around the cheese on the top, the bottom, and the sides. You don't want too much airflow though, because that will affect the humidity inside the box, which is another crucial environmental factor. You want to make sure you have the right amount of humidity so that the mold that you want to grow on the surface of your cheese will grow there, as in the case of a camembert, which has Penicillium candidum growing on the outside. You can use a device like this, which will give you a humidity reading when placed inside your ripening box. And if you find that it's too dry inside your ripening box and you want to increase the humidity, there's two ways to do it. First of all, you can take a paper towel that's been soaked in water and squeeze it a little bit. You don't want too much water, and that will provide some moisture in the box. Keep it away from the cheeses, just in a corner. And the other thing you can do is have a small dish of water that you place right inside the ripening box. So you want a certain amount of humidity, but not too much. You'll know if you have too much humidity when you'll see there are water droplets on the sides of the box and on the underside of the lid, and certainly on the bottom. It's really important to remove that amount of moisture in the first few days in particular that you put your cheese inside the box. So take some paper towels and wipe away all of those water droplets. So you need to have a certain amount of humidity, but not too much. You'll get better with it over time, and just refer to your recipe for how much humidity you want. It's the same with temperature. Like with this thermometer, you should have a way to know the temperature inside your cheese boxes. So each cheese has an ideal ripening temperature, and usually it's between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius. I have a basement cold room, which is usually around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius throughout the year, except in the winter time when sometimes it gets as cold as -2 Celsius. So I have to take my cheeses out of the cold room and put them in a different area of the basement until the spring comes. Now, if you don't have a basement cold room, don't worry. You can actually put your ripening boxes right in the refrigerator at 4 degrees Celsius. The downsides are that they're big boxes, they take up a lot of room, and also your cheeses will mature more slowly. Another aspect of affinage is the flipping of cheeses, and this is to ensure the proper shape of a cheese and the proper rind development on all sides of the cheese. If you don't flip your cheese, you're going to have problems. Just remember, it's very easy to do. You just pick up the cheese and you turn it over and place it back down. It just takes a few seconds. If you don't do it, here's a kind of result that you might have. Here are two crottin types of cheeses, goat cheeses, which have a candidum and geotrichum surface rind, and I didn't flip them enough. So if you take a close look, you'll see that there is a hole in the surface here where the fungi were attached to the bamboo mat, and when I picked it up, it ripped. So if I had flipped this more often, that would not have happened. And here is the same goat cheese, which has a bad shape. This wasn't flipped enough, so it flopped. Still great to eat, it's just not the best shape. With more advanced cheeses, each recipe will tell you exactly how to take care of that cheese for it to mature properly. And you should write down all of those steps that you've taken on a piece of paper to create a log, which I do for each one of my cheeses. This cheese I have treated badly. I provided poor affinage, and I want you to see what's happened to it. It is covered in mold, and you might think I should discard this cheese completely, that it's a goner, that it looks disgusting. Well, you're right, it doesn't look that great, but it might not be a goner. In fact, I'm going to try and see what is underneath all of that mold on the surface by washing it with a 2% brine solution. Okay, so I've removed most of the blue mold, and now I'm going to use a knife just to lightly scrape the surface, being careful not to pierce the rind of the cheese, just to remove some of the surface marks that are there. There we go. Well, it looks pretty good now. It's been cleaned up quite a bit. It actually looks okay. I've cut it into chunks. It is quite dried out because I did not take care of it properly. What I did for this video is I left this cheese to be ignored for several months just to see how bad it could be, and even though it is really dried out, it's still edible and quite tasty. I tried a piece before. It's just a drier cheese than it should be, but still quite yummy. I would eat this for sure. That's still pretty good. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video on affinage. Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, or tell me about other videos that you'd like me to make. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, and thanks so much for joining me. Take care.